Hello everyone, my name is Anita and I'm here on my channel which is called Anita's Creations 633. I want to welcome each and every one of you. I'm hoping that this will show you different ways of preparing food because sometimes we just get bored with the same thing over and over. And these are things that my mother used to make for us when we were small. So I hope that you can subscribe and like and comment because that would help me so much. And if it's something that you think of that you might want to see me cook, well, let me know and I will do my best to do so. Thank you. Now I'm going to fix something here that I was given when I was a child. My mother would call it chicken in a garden. And I'm using chicken breast on the bone, but what I did, I deboned it. And you can always save the bones for stock later on. And I'm going to start with showing you is chicken breast. We also have tomatoes, zucchini, yellow squash, corn, and onion, and garlic. And for the spices, we have salt, adobo, ground cumin, onions, garlic, and some curry. Okay? And of course, some oil to put in the pan to cook the chicken. So we're going to start first with the chicken. Everything has been washed. My hands are very clean. So we're going to start with the chicken and we're just going to make it into little cubes, bite size. You can use chicken breast or you can use thighs. I personally like the thighs, but they didn't have any at the store. And what I like about this, it doesn't take that much ingredients and you can feed a family of 4 or a family of 2 if they're big eaters. Now I like the chicken breast. It's okay, but I think the thighs are a lot more juicier. But a lot of people don't like dark meat, so we're doing it with the chicken breast. Now, going back to the seasoning, maybe I didn't tell you, the oil that I'm using is olive oil. And you can use any oil that you want. The only reason I'm using that is because that's what I like. Because you don't really have to cook this at a very high heat. So it won't hurt using the olive oil. So what I'm doing, I'm just kind of trimming the chicken, things that I personally don't like on it. And as far as the seasonings, you can use anything that you like. Now, if you don't like, let's say, onions, don't add onions. Or you can use the powder. And if you don't like whole garlic, you can always use garlic powder. Now, there's a lot of other things that you can also do. And maybe one day I'll do a video showing you that you can also, instead of the whole corn, you can just buy a can of corn, throw out the water, drain it, and use that. And nowadays, a lot of the stores carry already sliced vegetables, the zucchini and the yellow squash. They already have all that cut up and in bags. Now, if you want to go that route, you can also go that route. And if you don't like to cut your own tomatoes, they also have tomatoes in a can that you could use, diced tomatoes. So there's a lot of ways of doing this. It's shortcuts that you could take. So, okay, let's get the skillet going. We're going to put a little oil. You don't need a lot, just enough to kind of cover the bottom. Okay, and now we're going to take the chicken. I cut them up into bite sizes, you know. And we're going to go ahead and cook that up. While the chicken is cooking, we're going to start with the vegetables. Like I was telling you, this is a recipe that my mother made for us when we were little. Times were hard and we lived mostly off the land and everything. And we had to make things stretch. I had three brothers and a sister, plus my mom and dad. And she had to try to figure ways of feeding all of us. And so she would have a garden, and she would take everything that she had at the garden and find a way to stretch the meals. And this happens to be one of my favorites. So all this has been washed already. And what we're going to do, we're going to start cutting it up. And you can cut it any way you want. I mainly like to, cut it in half. And then, not too thick and not too thin. And now, my mother's passed away a couple of years back, but I remember all the things that she used to cook and how she made things stretch out. And times are tough nowadays, so I'm kind of going back to my roots. And on top of that, we nowadays don't have the time for some reason as we did back in the old days. I mean, there was 7 days just like it is now, but for some reason we just had more time, So, yeah. Let's give this a stir. Once it cooks a little bit more, we'll start adding seasonings to it. And this meal right here, you can serve it with some white rice or some Spanish rice. We used to have it with Spanish rice and refried beans when we were growing up. So, yeah, I mean, there's so much you can do with this. I'll be back with showing you how to finish everything. I'm going to finish chopping everything and getting it ready, and then I'll be right back. Alright, it's cooked about halfway, I would say. And we're going to go ahead and start adding some of the seasoning. So this is adobo. You can find that in the Mexican aisle. And we're going to add a teaspoon. Okay. More seasoning. Okay, so now we're going into the cumin. Okay, we're going with a half a teaspoon because cumin's pretty strong. You don't want to overdo it. I always try to use good ingredients. If you were here, you could smell it and just, I mean, you would be starving by the time I'm finished. Okay, we're going with a half again of onion powder. half a teaspoon also of garlic. It seems like a lot of spices, but you got to see we got a lot of chicken and we have a lot of vegetables that's going to have to be seasoned. Now, I'm not going to put any salt in it at the moment until I find out, you know, if it needs it. Because some of this, like the adobo, it has salt in it. So while this cooks a little further down, I turn the fire down to low and let it cook a little bit longer. Make sure that the chicken is well cooked. I'm going to continue to cut up the vegetables and everything and getting them ready to put them in the pot. So I'll be right back once I... Okay, I have everything chopped up and diced. My tomatoes, all of my vegetables, the zucchini, the yellow squash, the corn, I took it off the cob. I've got onions and garlic that we're still gonna add to this for more flavoring. So let's get this going. You know, when you cover the chicken like that, it releases a lot of water that it has in it. So we try not to add any water to it unless you're wanting soup, which is not a bad thing either. And if you're wondering how I came up with the name Anita Creation, because I haven't always been in a wheelchair. I was as normal as you and I. And this little mishap happened with my knee. I had a torn meniscus, and the doctor that was treating me didn't do his job right and messed up my knee. So I had to create different ways of doing the things I used to do. So that's how I ended up with the name Anita Creations. Because I was not going to let that disability hinder me from doing the things that I enjoy doing. Like cooking, gardening, crocheting, all that. I was not going to let it hinder me. So that's how I came up with the name. Okay, now that we have all that in, you know, I might need a bigger pan. I think, yes, a bigger pan. So if you just give me a minute, I'll be right back. Yeah, like I said, had to get a bigger skillet. But that's okay. So now, I've got to switch. Don't want to scratch it all up. So we're going to let this cook for a little bit. Kind of soften up the onions. Which they seem to be soft already because I chopped them up small enough. So, okay. Here we go. This is all the vegetables. They're all going in now. It's very colorful. Here goes the tomatoes. And you see, I didn't use that much vegetables, but it goes a long way. Now all this, again, will release a lot of liquid. So we won't have to put anything in here whatsoever. Just let it cook. Just stir it all around. And at this point, I'm just going to add a little bit of salt. Now, I'm using Himalayan salt, but you can use any salt that you like. I just prefer the Himalayan. And we're going to use about a half a teaspoon. And this is when I'm going to add my curry. A quarter of a teaspoon. It's a very strong spice. But it makes chicken just taste absolutely wonderful. Alright. And you see how many people you could feed off of this? And how beautiful it is? And the aroma that's coming out of this is unbelievable. So we're gonna let it cook. We'll cover it up. Give me a second. Cover it up and let the juices start releasing. Letting everything get cooked up now. And we'll be ready to eat. I'll bring you back in just a second. You don't even have to add water, because if you can see how much juice all the vegetables have released, so there's no need to add any water to it. We're just going to let the vegetables get tender and then we'll be ready to eat. We'll be back when they're ready. Okay, so now the food is finally ready. So we're going to serve it and try it. So what I've done is I'm going to put some of this. Got to be very careful, it's super hot. And I made a little rice to go with it. Tell me that doesn't look yummy. Now we gotta give it a few minutes because it is super, super hot. Okay, time to test it.
It's gone.
Mmm.